Hi there, this is Dr. Jonathan Moore for Barossa Family Chiro once again, and this video I'm talking about baby and childhood neurodevelopment. It's one of the key focal areas that we have here at Barossa Family Chiro, and you've probably heard me say a few times already, it is the greatest privilege of mine to be handed a newborn or a child to say, can you please help? I recognize how precious that is, and for me, to be trusted like that is enormous. Here's why it matters. From a neurologically focused chiropractic model, we recognize we're not just looking at the bones of the spine and their alignment, which is what most people think for chiropractic, but we're looking at how well the brain and the body are communicating. And this is relevant right from birth, because the better the brain and the body communicate, the better we see things like development and learning and growth. And this is what sets a child up for their toddler years, their early school years, and into their teen years. If we can ensure that the brain and body communication is as crystal clear as possible at a young age, the brain is very malleable and very changeable at that age. And so we're able to have profound impacts where we can identify areas where there's disconnection or interference and allow things to work at their best so the child can learn, grow, and develop at their best. Little point here. The techniques that I use when working with children are very, very different to the techniques that I use with working with adults. We don't just look at them as being little adults who have the same technique. There's a lot of pediatric specific techniques that I'm trained in that I've used for years, which are gentle, powerful, and effective for little ones, even days or hours old. The youngest that I've had the privilege of working with was on their day of birth, which is just, as I said to you before, very humbling. The key thing is, for a child to learn, grow, and develop best, it needs really no help. It just needs nothing getting in the way. And my job is to understand, was there some stress? Was there some trauma? Was there some challenge that created what we would call disconnection between the brain and the body? If there is that, we're not looking at disability. We're not looking at major challenge, although that can happen for some children, but that's not really where the focal point is. The focal point is saying, here is a child who's doing well, who might just be struggling to feed well or crawl well or settle well, or they're not pooing properly, or they're pooing too much, or they cry too much, they're unsettled, they're not settling, they're not rested, they're behavioral challenges in the toddler kind of child, these sorts of things, learning difficulties in the older children. I don't want to dive too much into that right now because there's a lot to talk about, and the technicalities of that can become a bit overwhelming. But needless to say, if we can understand if there's been any stress almost from conception through to birth in those early years, we can understand what impact that might have had on a very primitive, immature nervous system, and use some gentle but really beautiful techniques to see a child just come back into function again and things work well. I could tell you stories, but now's not the place for that. But needless to say, it's one of the focal points for me at Barossa Family Chiro to help children and babies with neurodevelopment, which impacts things like feeding and sleeping and pooing and crying and developmental milestones, as well as learning and growth. If you want to know more, touch base with me. I'll give you more details. But for now, the first key focal point that I want to talk about is baby and childhood neurodevelopment. Have a good day. Bye-bye.